Today on the Brand Aid podcast.
But you actually do have the power to be able to create inspiration by developing a process to help you get in your writing zone.
Welcome to Brand Aid, where we answer the question, what does it take to launch your own brand revolution, create evolution, and who are the people that help you foster connection, community, contribution, and currency for a brand built to last. You will also meet brands changing the world and the lives of those they serve. Here's your host, Cheryl Hodgson.
Is there a transformational book within you that is screaming to be written? How would that book serve your business and increase your brand recognition? My guest today has helped nearly 80,000 authors in 127 countries around the world do just that. Kristine Kloser is a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestselling author, coach, and publisher. But what's more important is who those authors become through Kristine's life-changing process. She delivers much more than a published book. She helps aspiring authors fully embody their true, authentic self and bring their brilliance to the world. Kristine will share the biggest mistakes authors make and how to avoid them, and what you can do first to get more clarity on your message. Welcome today's guest, Kristine Kloser.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Hodgson. Welcome to the Brand Aid podcast. I'm here with my guest today, Kristine Kloser. Welcome to the show, Kristine.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I'm excited to be here with you and your audience.
Well, I have a very important question for you.
Lay it on me.
I hear that you have the ability to help entrepreneurs and leaders craft a best-selling book. Can you share your process with me and how you do that?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you for asking that question. And yes, it is true that I have worked with many clients who are best-selling authors, some who have won awards, been seen all over media, like major media, like TEDx and the LA Times and USA Today and places like that, and who have also spoken on stages literally around the world. So this is what I do. And, the process is quite in depth, but the overall way that I work with my clients is to absolutely make sure that before they sit down to start writing the manuscript itself, that they begin first by laying a solid foundation under that book. Because too many people that I see, I want to write a book, and then they just start writing, and they haven't really done the foundational work to figure out, how does this book work in my life? How is it meant to impact my readers? How does it fit into my business? Like, what's the big impact that I want to have with this book in the world? And without foundation first, I've seen too many authors just fall flat on their face. Because it's sad, but I've seen people spend $15, even $30, up to $50,000 to work with coaches to help them write their books. And when I talk with them, after either they haven't gotten the help they needed to write the book, or they wrote the wrong book, or they wrote a book that ended up not being a representation of, who they wanted to be and the level of quality and caliber of work they wanted to put forth in the world. And I'm like, well, did you do this stuff first? They're like, no, like they didn't even think of really developing strong foundation. So the process begins with strong foundation.
Well, I love that because I talk to my own clients about that all the time, which is they want to jump into spending money to register something. And I'm like, but wait a minute, or protect something, but they haven't taken the steps to lay a strong foundation to have a successful outcome. So I really champion that approach. I think it's wonderful. What is the biggest mistake you have found in working with would-be authors, and as well as the successful ones, the biggest challenge in getting that foundation laid? I mean, what's the number one important part of the foundational steps?
It's really being willing to do the work to get the clarity you need that will power you forward through every single aspect of the development and the creation and the publishing of this book and the editing process. If you don't have clarity, you don't really know where you're going. I call it like the North Star. You need to have your North Star for your book. And a lot of people in too many programs that I see out there kind of skim over that. Like they just crank out the book and get it done and become a bestseller and change your life. It's like, it's baloney. If we could spare the explicit rating on this episode, it's baloney, because what happens is if you don't dig enough to get to real clarity, I'm not just talking like, oh, I think I'm going to do this, but like, really, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And I see so many authors out there that work with other people, don't go through my process, who fail miserably by not getting that clarity first. So the biggest mistake I see people making is kind of, scratching the itch at the surface and being like, all right, good enough. And then, they write a book and it's not the right book, or it's the right book at the wrong time. And I experienced that myself. I wrote the wrong book back in 2008, and it was devastating for myself.
What do you mind me asking, what was the book?
The book is called The Freedom Formula: How to Put Soul in Your Business and Money in Your Bank. And it's an amazing book. I mean, we sold thousands of copies. It was top 100.
I love the tagline.
Yeah. Neil Donald Walsh, like the New York Times bestselling author of Conversations with God, wrote the foreword for me. It's an amazing, amazing book. Like I said, thousands of copies, top 100 on Amazon when we released it. But it was like the book that kind of scratched the itch at the surface. And this was before I know what I know now, right? This was 15 years ago. I was just sort of like, yeah, okay, I'll write a book. And I, kind of followed what I saw other people doing, but I didn't dig deep enough. And it wasn't until the book was really just about published. I was launching my event around this book. I had 100 people coming to my event. I ended up doing $500,000 of sales from that event for people stepping into coaching and mastermind with me and all of the stuff. But the issue was, it was like 9/10 of the way through the process that I went to my coach at the time and I said, it doesn't feel right. Like something's wrong.
Wow.
Because it all looked fine on the outside. But if you don't dig deep enough to really get that foundation and the clarity that's in complete and total alignment with who you are, what you're up to in the world, how you want to serve people, what your gifts are, for me, it wreaked havoc on my life. Not just my business, but every aspect of my life.
Well, I can see that, because having just published my own first little book, I have to tell you, that's been a 10-year journey, because there were 3 or 4 other iterations and about 5 other manuscripts that are still lying around that hopefully I will get back to and go back to the other book that is still in there, to bring out. But it's not a overnight process to really get that clarity.
And the sad thing is, Cheryl, it is, and you've probably seen this too. I mean, there's so much messaging out there. They're like, oh, just answer a couple questions and fill in a template and there's your book, or write it in a weekend, or become a bestseller in 90 days. Or one of the ones I saw was become a bestseller. Literally, this is a text I got: become a bestseller in less than 24 hours without writing a single word. And I was like, what kind of piece of junk is that? I'm like, it's ridiculous what's out there in the industry. And so many people believe that they should be writing it fast, that they can't do it in a weekend, like there's something wrong with them, or, like there's just this messaging that truly isn't supportive of authors writing their best books, their signature book, the book that truly has the power to shift the trajectory of their life, of their business, of their work in the world, to open up doors of opportunity where 10 years from now, that person's going to be thrilled to be speaking on the book they wrote a decade ago. Like, that's the level of commitment that I have from my clients. Don't just scratch the itch and write like what's at the surface that you could just throw together with a few old blog posts, because a lot of people are taught, oh yeah, just go pull some old blog posts. You got a book, but not a book that's really going to do what you want it to do.
Not at all. And I'd like to explore, obviously the title of my podcast is Brand Aid from Our Evolution. And I think that you just hit an important point that I'd like to go a little deeper with, is to share in maybe a recent example of a success story of someone you've worked with, and of how a book relates to them being a brand or having a career that takes them on that greater trajectory that you just mentioned.
Absolutely. I have a client, Beth Benatti Kennedy. She wrote a book called Career Recharge, and she had come to me, gosh, I guess maybe two or 3 years ago, after working with another coach who kind of, helped her with sort of a writing process, but did not really point her in the direction of this book. Now, this woman, she's a resiliency expert. She goes in, she talks to doctors, she works with hospital staff, she works with people in high stress situations to help them use her model to be resilient in their work and in their life and in the world. And she had a good thing going on already, but really her big goal is just I'm ready. I'm ready for the next phase. I want to be right. I want to be speaking on stages internationally, at my, the larger conferences in my industry. She's like, I'm ready for that larger stage.
Yeah.
But I know that if I don't have a book, I'm not going to be able to get on that stage. So she came to me, she jumped into my Get Your Book Done Accelerator program, worked with her. She came to retreats, we did coaching, all sorts of stuff. And, through the process, she wrote this book called Career Recharge. And here's sort of the bittersweet piece of it is that part of what she was involved with in the work with me was I do one destination writing retreat a year. And we had our retreat coming up in Tulum, Mexico. We were staying at this amazing resort right on the water, and we were going to be together as a group writing for the week. And Beth was so disappointed. Well, it was, like I said, bittersweet, because she was so disappointed she couldn't come to Mexico with us. But the reason why she couldn't come to Mexico with us is because she was being flown to Madrid, Spain. Actually, she flew into Madrid, but she flew to Barcelona, had a lovely vacation with her husband. They enjoyed that. And then she was off to Madrid to give her first international speaking engagement before the book was even done. Because when she pitched herself, she said in her byline, forthcoming author of Career Recharge. And we even had the book cover image done by then so they could see this book was real. And that, that was amazing. She's won awards for that book. She has gotten more clients from that book. We recently heard from her that she's speaking, not recently, but before the whole, travel bans and all that stuff because of our global situation recently. But she was in Canada speaking on stage in a lineup that included one of her biggest heroes in the business space. She's like, wow. I'm on stage with one of my idols. And that all happened, and all of that exposure and all the business that came out of it happened because, I helped her write the right book, get the right title that worked with her brand and, what she was up to in the world. So it's, it's an amazing story.
That must have tremendous satisfaction because for you, because this is a little bit off topic, but I keep hearing constantly about people taking training courses, including me, who, online courses and trainings to do this and that, and we don't ever look at them. Only 5% or something, even complete online courses they buy. So, it's to have that feeling of satisfaction of knowing that you've really helped somebody bring something forward makes it feel rewarding because you've been at this a long time, right?
I have. I've been at this. I started in the business in 2004. And I have literally, at this point in time, I've trained more than 80,000 authors through, a variety of my different programs that I offer. And I've personally published, I think now the count is up to 400 people that I've personally published and birthed them through the publishing process to see their words printed and out in the world, whether, solo books like Career Recharge and, countless others, but also through some anthologies that I've published over the years. So it's absolutely phenomenal work because when people write a book, they really are birthing a deeper expression of themselves in the world. And it's an honor, to bear witness and to play a part in that birth.
Well, we've talked a bit about the foundation, And I understand you said you have a writing retreat where you guys go on you can take clients away to actually birth the book and get further along in the writing process. So maybe you could touch on that a little bit. And then also I'd love to hear more about how do you work with authors beyond actually writing the book? Do you help them go through the publication process?
Absolutely. Do you want me to first talk a little bit about the retreats and then we'll talk about
Yes,
publishing?
that's the fun part.
Yes, it is. And here's the thing, like almost everyone that you talk to wants to write a book or feels they have a book inside of them. There was a study done years ago that I think in North America, it was like over 80% of people surveyed said they felt like they had a book inside of them. But the problem is, like, you can have a book inside of you forever. But if you don't actually set aside distraction-free time to write, it's nearly impossible to write. Like, you have to have this commitment of that distraction-free time. So what we do over here with my clients is we set up a series of retreats for people to participate in. And right now, recently we've been doing them virtually. We also do them in person. We do them for 3 hours. We do them, for 3 days. We do them for 5 days. Because people, when they land in a container, like a community of fellow writers with a coach like me by their side every single minute, holding that space for them, answering questions for them, they go off and write and they come back like, hey, I just did this. What do you think? Am I on track? Yes, you're on track. Or no, you're not on track. Try it this way. And then they go and then they come back. So that kind of really focused distraction-free time on retreat, whether it's, I've taken groups to Costa Rica, Tulum, the Bahamas, right here to my backyard practically at a hotel down the street in York, Pennsylvania. And I've conducted virtual writing retreats for clients around the world. And yes, we've had people like show up at 3:00 in the morning on the other side of the world to participate in these virtual writing retreats because it's that distraction-free time that is where people make progress. And even like at the end of our retreats, whether it's in person or virtually, I always, give people an opportunity to celebrate. And it's amazing, these celebrations. It's like, well, I wrote, 1,500 words, or I nailed my back cover copy, or I got my outline finished. Like, there's so much momentum that happens. So This is why, especially in my Get Your Book Done Accelerator program, it is all about these virtual and in-person retreats. And even like we had to do an in-person retreat for 3 full days, 8 hours a day virtually recently, given the situation. People couldn't come to York to attend. So we just moved it online, and from 10 to 6 for 3 days straight. We were like locked down in retreat. And I mean, there were people that just wrote thousands upon thousands of words and made such incredible progress. So that distraction-free time, whether you come on retreat, with me and in my community, or you just put yourself in lockdown in your own office and like turn off the phones and turn off the email and turn off everything and put the blinders on only for writing, like that's one of the key elements to make sure that you actually do get your book done.
Yeah, I think that's powerful because I know, look, if you're an entrepreneur, and I would imagine many of the people you work with are entrepreneurs, they have other careers that they're trying to expose in a greater way to the world or share in a greater way with the rest of the world. Like for me, when I'm managing a law practice and trying to serve my clients, and then, whatever else I'm doing, it feels like too many things sometimes. But, it's like, okay, well, when am I going to write? Right? Okay, well, I have to carve out the time. I tried personally going away for 3 days by myself. I got to a certain extent, a certain amount of progress, but it still wasn't focused like what you're talking about. And I remember about 2 or 3 years ago, I spoke at this conference in Ireland, in Dublin, and there were lots of other people there over a 4 or 5 day period. And one of them that I got to listen to was Dan Brown, the famous fictional writer, right? And, one of the questions he was asked by the interviewer was exactly about how he created that time to write. And he said, it's what I do. From 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., 7 days a week, I write. Even if I have nothing to write, I write. Even if I can't think of anything to put on the page, that's what I do from 4 to 7. And, it's a little bit different because he's writing big fictional books and many, many of them. But, there's that discipline of creating that time, that focused time, I think is powerful.
Absolutely. And part of the important thing with that time, and it's something I teach in my Get Your Book Done program, is that it's important to understand what your writing style is. Like some people, like Dan Brown, like it's everyday practice. Others, like me, I'm what I call a chunk writer. Like I'm real good. Give me 3 hours, like give me a 3 hour chunk and I'm good to go. And, let me do that a couple times a week. And that's how I wrote all of my books pretty much, is in chunk writing. And then there's the day writer, like they're the people, and this is me sometimes, and certainly it's my clients that come on retreat, where they spend just an entire day or a few days immersed in nothing but writing for full days at a time and multiple days in a row sometimes. So, it's really important, because if you're a daily writer, like you need to follow that natural tendency to, like, I got to be in the habit of writing every day. If you're a chunk writer like me, it's important to, like, don't beat yourself up because you're not writing every day. You're a chunk writer. You're not a daily writer. So it's important to understand what your personal style is, because when you're writing a book, you don't need any kind of chitter chatter in your head, saying, oh, well, you're not doing it right because that person wrote all day and, you're just writing 10 minutes a day. And, it's like, none of it helps. So find what works for you. And that's why knowing your writing style is super important.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things along those lines I know is some writers will say, a lot of people say, well, I have to wait till I'm inspired. But do you find that that's necessary? I mean, isn't there a certain amount of just, you have to sit down at the typewriter or the keyboard and actually
Yes,
start writing? And then the words
absolutely.
may come.
Yes. And one of the things that we help our clients do is to discover how they can get into their writing zone consistently, like methodically. Like there is a process that you can create that moves you into that place where you can kind of make yourself be inspired, if that makes sense. It's it's wonderful to just wait for inspiration to come. But at the same token, you can't rely on inspiration to just come, because it may not come for a month or 2 months or a year or decades. I've had clients who have come to me, had a book stuck inside of them for 45 years, and then in a matter of months, like the manuscript came out. So like, don't wait for inspiration, but you actually do have the power to be able to create inspiration by developing a process to help you get in your writing zone. So don't wait for inspiration. You can create.
Awesome.
You can create it, because I don't believe that good books are written forced, but you can sort of move yourself through a process that makes that inspiration possible. I'm not talking about just hammering away at words when you're just like, you feel like you're fighting every single one of them to come out. Like nothing great gets written that way.
Whether you are CEO of your own evolving brand, or you are serving as guide and mentor to other emerging brand owners, it's important to include legal protection for valuable brand assets. Brand names and logos, as well as other intellectual property, are often the most valuable business assets a company will ever own. Registered trademarks for product names, logos, and slogans are a potent weapon against domain hijackers, cyber squatters, as well as other later entrants into the market. In my international best-selling book, Registered Trademark, The Business Owner's Guide to Brand Protection, I reveal my simple 3-step process to help select, secure, and sustain protection for your own brand dream team. And I'll share how to bulletproof your business both online and off. As my special gift to our listeners, you can receive a free copy of my book. Simply go to brandaid.com/free gift to receive your copy today, and you'll pay only for shipping and handling.
Well, let's move on to the second question, because I gave you
Publishing.
a double whammy at once,
And two really big questions too.
Yes, exactly.
So where do you want to start with publishing? Or do you want me just to kind of give an overview?
Well, I was just
of
kind of
publishing
curious
today?
because, well, that's great. And also what was in my mind was there are many people who profess to help people birth books, as you say.
Yes.
And most of them I would be willing to guess and say are not even close to the process and the in-depth training that you offer someone. So there's that distinction. But I guess I also was just curious, as part of your process and program, do people have the option to have you help actually get the book, once it's written, out into the world?
Absolutely. I have two distinctly separate companies. Like one of my companies is the coaching and training, where we run our programs and coaching and our accelerator programs and our retreats and all of that stuff. And then we have a second company, which is specifically dedicated only to book publishing. So we do offer that process. I got to be honest with you, though, back in, oh gosh, it must have been 2009. I was just like, I can't do this publishing thing anymore. Doing it well, which is the only way that I can do it. It is time consuming. It is laborious. Like, it is a process. It is expensive. And I was like, I just can't do this anymore. It's just too much. I can't cut corners like other people cut corners. I can't do template covers. I can't skip quality control when it comes to editing and just pump out junk. And so we shut down the entire publishing company. And I would refer people to other publishing partners that I really felt like I vetted fairly well. You know, well-known names. If I said them out loud, you probably would have heard of them. And one by one, the people I would refer would come back to me and be like, hey, that company you referred me to, they published my book without even telling me that it was published. I found out because a friend of mine saw it. Other people literally have had traumatic experiences in working with other publishers. I had someone talk about how their book was, they got their proof copy and it was in a language other than English. Like, I don't even know how that kind of stuff happens. Like, isn't there a human being anywhere? Like, is it all just pumping through a factory? So I had a mutiny, a loving mutiny at one of my events I was hosting in Baltimore. And there was a point where we were talking about publishing, and 90% of the room was begging me to start publishing again. And I had heard 1-2 minute horror stories. And I was like, okay. And I turned to my team and I'm like, who can help spearhead this? And that was probably 5 years ago, we got back into publishing, 2014, 2015, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And we do an amazing job. So yes, people come to us. We do publish their books. We have an incredibly high standard for quality when it comes to editing, when it comes to design, when it comes to interiors, when it comes to customer service, when it comes to the support that we give our clients around Amazon optimization and marketing support to help them understand launching, to writing press releases, to help, them get visibility for their book. You can't find what we do from anyone else in the industry, especially at the price that we offer it, and where we empower our authors because they maintain all of their rights and they keep every penny of every book sold. Like, wow. We do straight, you pay us, we do a great job, but then any success and all success that you have with your book, it's all yours. Like, you don't pay us again. You don't pay us and then pay us again every time you sell a book. That just didn't seem fair to me. So I really feel like we have one package and one package only because we put the best of everything. Like, we don't piecemeal because we tried piecemealing and it doesn't work. We just put everything together that we know that our clients need to have an amazing book published that truly represents them, that when they get it, that like they can't wait to show it to the world, versus so many people that I've talked to who have published elsewhere who've been like, I'm embarrassed to show this to anyone. Or it was such a painful experience for them that they look at their own book and it just makes them hurt because of how horrible the process was. So yes, we do publish. We don't work with a lot of clients a year because it is very hands-on and very in-depth. We're more boutique-y, if you will, but it's just, it's too important to if you're going to write this manuscript, why not do it right? Why not publish it right?
For those of you listening to this, if you have a book in you, Kristine's the person to talk to, because I have gone through the process in the last 2.5 years. It took me to self-publish my little 120-page book, which I am finally quite proud of. But Kristine, I relate at the depths of my soul with what you're talking about, because that is actually part of my mission for Brand Aid, is to help entrepreneurs and business owners access people they can trust and who deliver the goods, if you'll say, excuse the metaphor. Because in my own experience, I've had some good help, but I mean, I must have gone through 50 edits of that book. And every time I would pick it up, there would be more mistakes.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like,
and I paid people to edit at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And when I read the audio book from the final manuscript, I found another 60 typos. And that was just in December. And people who took my money and didn't complete stuff couldn't find somebody who could deliver a finished interior of the book. It's not a simple process, folks.
My heart breaks for you, Cheryl, because had we known you back when you started this journey, had we known each other, we could have shaved years and probably thousands of dollars and lots of heartache and frustration off the journey. And here's the thing.
I almost gave up on it. That's the real part.
And people do.
And I think that's true, because and I think, for someone like me, I mean, I talk about branding and brand aid, but I think a book for the average professional or someone who has an area of expertise, it's part of personal branding. It's of helping launch who you are and what differentiates you and what makes you special into the world, and allows you to convey that message through the book.
Yes. And if you don't do it right, or you work with people who don't care about quality, and it's not quality controlled, it's not assessed, it's not edited, your cover is just like something that looks like your 5-year-old nephew did it, on his computer. Like, what ends up happening is you actually damage your own brand, because people know you as this amazing, person and doing this great work in the world. But if you pump out like a shoddy book that doesn't match the caliber of who you are and what you do, and if you're not in the author space, like if this isn't the work you do, you don't necessarily know what you're looking for. I had this happen with another attorney I talked to recently, like really, well-known, does great work, is multi-million dollar type of clients, and just didn't know what they didn't know about publishing. And, just as a friend, I said, I'm like, well, what did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? And like, no. And I'm like, you need to do these things, or you're going to make yourself actually diminish that brand value that you have in the marketplace, because anyone who reads this book or kind of follows through or goes to your Amazon page is going to be like, ooh, that's not the attorney I know or want.
Absolutely. Well, and I've been in that situation where, people I've hired to write copy, for example, or I've hired to edit something. And, there's a fine line, because writing as a lawyer is not necessarily great for reaching a wider audience, because a lot of lawyers tend to talk in legal babble or legalese, and they don't relate in a way in which their target potential client can understand it and relate to. So there's that. But having said that, I've had people who bring things back to me and they've changed the meaning. They've distorted what I was saying into something. They were trying to make it cheeky and easy to read, or, and instead they actually made it said something that wasn't correct. And I'm like, no, I can't. My reputation's here on the line, so.
You've got to be careful, because you don't want to be having to do like brand recovery because you wrote a book and kind of didn't know what you didn't know and delivered something that was less than helpful to your brand.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it right. And we are here to help. I'm not going anywhere. I've got an amazing team of editors and designers, and of course me and coaches on my team to help you write, and then we can help you publish. We'll help you sidestep all of the mistakes.
Great. Well, once I finally recover from this first book, I'll be calling you to write the big book. That's still there. It's got a lot of work to be done, but it's there. So I'm not waiting 40 years to get that one done.
Good. Would love to help you, Cheryl.
So I know I'm so honored to have you on the show. I really am, because I know you're like the forgive my colloquialism, the cat's meow. You know what I mean? You know what you're doing. And it's really great to be able to share that with people. I do want to ask you a couple of things before we wind it up today.
Sure.
What is one of the greatest challenges you faced in your own business in bringing your message to the world over the years?
It probably was that time where I wrote the wrong book, built the wrong business, did it for the wrong reasons, had hired a very expensive, coach that did not coach me in what he thought I should be doing, not helping me excavate what I really ought to be doing. And when I hit that moment where I realized, like, I built this business around this book and it just wasn't right, the most challenging moment was probably the decision to not continue down that road against, everyone being like, Kristine, what are you, crazy? Like, no one does $500,000 in sales out of their first event, like with 100 people in the room, and doing my pitch, in a guided meditation. Cause like, that's my style. Like, no one does that. Like, you can't turn off this thing. And I was like, watch me turn off this thing. Because some of those clients that I got that led to that $500,000 in sales, like, they were not aligned clients. And I refunded, a lot of money. It was during the credit crunch when all of a sudden people had all this extra credit available in their lines to be able to, pay their membership fees, got cut, and then they couldn't pay me. Like, it was just one thing after another. But really, it was me deciding to pull the plug because I knew when I pulled that plug, it could very well mean bankruptcy and foreclosure, because my husband was a stay-at-home dad and I was a sole income earner. Like, I was the breadwinner in the family, but I couldn't do it. I could not do it because it felt.
But it turned out to be a good decision, right?
Oh my gosh, best decision ever. Hardest decision. Well, not the hardest, one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But it was in that everything falling apart. Like, I felt like the caterpillar and the chrysalis that turned to mush, where I, without the help of any coach or anyone, just me and my own beautiful self, did the inquiry that I now have my clients do. And that is where I got what I needed to come out in the world as the first known transformational author coach, because I knew about authorship. And I've been in the transformational space facilitating transformation for people since the early 90s in my very first business. Like, I knew this, and I would not have seen combining the worlds of transformation and authorship had I not pulled the plug on that previous business and landed in that chrysalis, like, unidentifiable to myself and just wanting for something more. So yeah, one of the biggest challenges in my business for sure.
I think that there's a real lesson for any entrepreneur business owner, because I've been there myself. And I have examples earlier in my career where I took on cases that went on for years, literally. I mean, there's at least a 15-year period of my life as a litigator in trademarks and copyrights where I basically gave up my entire life. And the biggest issue was I didn't know when. I couldn't admit defeat. That's one of my greatest strengths. And it's also one of my greatest challenges, knowing when to quit. And I love, since you've worked in transformation, I always remember what Louise Hay talked about many years ago, one of her tapes, which was there's something called an incomplete cycle of action, that it's okay to actually make a decision not to complete something, right? Or to not go a certain direction. You think you're supposed to stick with it, right? To get through, right? And many times that is important, but it takes some being in touch with yourself and your own, what your inner guidance is telling you.
Yeah. And if sometimes you do just need to pull the plug, and whether it's pulling the plug on a project or, like, I've made some really poor hiring decisions in my company where I bought the bill of rights. Like, I bought the crock of junk that people were telling me that they could do. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I need. It's like, no, they were masterful salespeople. You know what I mean? And we're happy to take my money and not deliver, but I learned from that too. Because
I'm witness to that.
Because there were points where I just had to pull the plug and be like, all right, no, not anymore. I'm not paying you another penny. And like, you're done. You're done in my company. And now, I've gotten much better and much more careful, much better at reading agreements and really, understanding agreements and fighting for what I believe needs to be in those agreements. But, as business owners, like, we have lots of opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
And some of it beautiful, amazing, and blissful, and some of it like, oh my God,
the school of hard knocks, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
what's the old saying? How do you get good judgment? Bad judgment.
Yeah.
And there's that old saying, which I love what you said, because it is one of my favorite mantras, and I use it all the time. For years I've said that. None of us knows what it is we don't know, right? And it's not because we necessarily made a mistake. We just didn't know in our consciousness to think or ask about something, because it wasn't in our frame of consciousness or
Yes.
our life's experience.
Yeah.
And so that's where having an expert that truly is an expert to cut that learning curve from, my painful 3-year process to, down to a more realistic, let's get it done and have a successful outcome. That's really the goal of working with somebody that can be a brand aid for your business, right? In some form or another. So, well, before we go, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. I do have one final question I always like to ask. What is there something about you that most people wouldn't know? It could be anything.
Well, I'll just share what just came to mind. I was not much of a student in my younger years, and I almost joined the Ice Capades. I was accepted. I have a kitty cat joining me if you're watching any of the video right now. But I almost toured with the Ice Capades instead of going to college when I was 17.
Oh my God. So you're an ice skater.
Yeah. I am an
fantastic.
ice skater.
See?
I was accepted to tour with them when I went to the, Hartford, Connecticut Coliseum to audition after one of their shows late one night. And 17, they took me on. And I just said, you know what? If my number one college doesn't accept me, I'll go tour with the Ice Capades. And my number one college, which was stretch school, like I didn't have the grades or the SATs to get in. But I think that the person who interviewed me to get into that college was a closet figure skater because the entire interview was about the Ice Capades. And I think it was that interview that got me into that school. So it was interesting. But yeah, I almost toured with the Ice Capades as a 17-year-old.
Well, I'm happy to know that, because I have met you in person and you look like you would be a figure skater to me.
Well, thank you.
So, no, you have that. You're so well poised and present so well. But thank you so much. And, is there anything I haven't asked you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I mean, probably the show notes has, websites and places where people get in touch with me. I don't know if we need to share that on air.
Why don't you share with us, how do people reach you if they would like to connect with you and learn more about your process and possibly have you help them birth that book?
The best thing to do is just to go to my main website, which is KristineKloser.com. It's CHRISTINE, and Kloser is KLOS like Sam ER. If you go to KristineKloser.com, you'll see everything you need to see there, including my free book called The Transformation Quadrant, which can help you do the foundational work to kind of get a blueprint together for your book in as little as 15 minutes. It's a very powerful tool. And the book and a workbook is all available for you free when you go to KristineKloser.com. So that's one place to start. My contact information is there. Reach out. We're here to help. And, I do want to just end by saying, if you have this seed of an idea for a book inside of you, it is not for naught. Like, if it's there, if you feel it, if anything that Cheryl and I have talked about today has resonated with you, like, I think I have a book inside of me. Trust that nudge. Trust that idea. Trust that feeling inside of you that's like, I've got something to share in this most sacred form of communication in the written word. Like, there's a sacredness and a power to books, and an intimacy to books that you can have with your readers that you don't find in a lot of other mediums. So if you feel that nudge, if you feel like that seed is inside of you, trust it, because it means the book is there And chances are pretty strong that if you feel it inside of you, there are other people feeling the desire and the need for what it is inside of you. Like there's a match to what you want to share and the people who need to read it. So go for it, and we're here to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kristine. And to the listeners, I recommend that you get in touch with Kristine and birth that book into the world. It will take your personal brand to a whole new place. This has been Cheryl Hodgson, the host of the Brand Aid podcast, and we will see you on the other side.
Kristine Kloser has helped thousands gain clarity and write their transformational book, launching the careers of numerous best-selling authors. You can reach Kristine at getyourbookdone.com. You can also download her free book to blueprint your own book in 15 minutes or less at transformationalquadrant.com.
Have you protected your big ideas? Is your online business built on a strong legal and business foundation? To learn more about the legal protection you need for your online business and how to use intellectual property to leverage the growth and profitability of your business, check out our new mini-sode series, Built to Last. I'll be sharing what I've learned during my business and legal career and how you can use those lessons to build a lasting legacy for your own business. So join me for my solo flight on the Brand Aid Built to Last mini-sodes.
That's it for today's episode. Head on over to brandaidpodcast.com and subscribe to the show. When you subscribe, you'll instantly receive Cheryl's free special gift, Consumer Guide to Trademark Registration Services. This consumer guide will help ensure your most valuable business assets are entrusted to professionals. Make certain you're on the path to a business and brand built to last. Join our Brand Aid community on the Podopolo mobile app to win prizes, products, and cool free resources to help you grow your business. And also connect with Cheryl and your friends. Podopolo is free on the Apple and Google App Stores. And when you go to brandaidpodcast.com/win and post a review to iTunes, you'll be entered into a drawing to win a once-in-a-lifetime VIP Brand Aid opportunity to mastermind with Cheryl personally to grow and scale your business, or to select, secure, and sustain a valuable brand name for your business. That's Podopolo on the Apple and Google App Stores. Download it now.